Now, Adrian, have you been paying attention? Because I know you're not always up on the pop culture. But have you been paying attention to everything surrounding Kate Middleton?
I know like one thing about this.
Okay,
Yes.
hit me. What do you know? Hit me with it.
I know that that there was a photo that was badly photoshopped.
Yes.
I know that. And I think she's sick. I know that.
Yes.
That's what I know.
Okay. Well, I would argue you know the two most important facts.
I'm so proud. This is exciting.
I'm extremely proud. You know the most important facts. I guess what you're missing is all of the fun that was had in between those two events.
Sure,
So it's like,
sure.
it's like you would ace the test because you got the facts, but you would miss the party because you missed the fun. But it works. All of this is my way of saying we're talking about Kate Middleton tonight. Kate Middleton and Meghan Markle.
Oh, wow.
I know.
I love that for us. I'm terrified, but in that good way. Let's go.
Well, hello and welcome everyone to Two Queens, Two Crowns. I'm KJ Miller, founder, lecturer, and content creator.
And I am Adrienne Rose White, actress, writer, producer, and I also teach how to actually sell a TV show organically.
And as I mentioned, tonight we're talking about Kate Middleton and Meghan Markle. Now, I will just say, I always had this on my list as a potential episode because these two women have for sure been pitted against one another, but I wasn't sure when, and I feel like the universe just kind of dropped this moment in our laps where she's been in the news and in the media so much over the past couple of weeks. I sort of felt like, we got to do it now.
This is the perfect time. And oh my God, I didn't even know this was on the list. I'm very excited. I feel like this is a conversation that's been going on forever, but hasn't been had by us in the conclusive way to show how they've actually lifted each other up. So I'm here for this.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for it. I do think it's going to be a little bit of a heavy lift for me. And I'll tell you why. Last week, I said this is going to be a heavy lift with Nicki Minaj and Cardi B because these two women do not like each other. And they've been very vocal about that, very much on the record about that. This week, the issue I'm having is that I, historically, have not been a big fan of one of these women. And so that puts me in a different spot because, obviously I'm a huge Beyonce and Taylor Swift stan. And with Nicki Minaj and Cardi B, I've been a fan of theirs as well. So this is new territory for me. So I feel like it's like, can I still do this when I'm not necessarily a fan,
Wow. Oh, I thought last weekend would be, not last weekend. I thought the last episode was going to be the episode that was make or break. This is it. This is, can you do it for someone that you are not a stan for? I love this. This is such an expansive heart space, actually.
Actually, I agree. And I don't know if I'll pull it off because it's like, will my heart end in the right space or will my, let's call them biases or preconceived notions or just the way I move in the world as a Black woman, knowing one of these women is Black and the other is not, like, will all of that cloud my ability to really say convincingly and genuinely believe that both of these women have helped each other out? I kind of don't know. I really wonder where we're going to end up in the next 45 to 50 minutes.
Well, first of all, talk about suspense. Here for it. Second, if this is a heavy lift, I'm here to spot. Let's fucking do it.
All right. So let's just start off by you telling me, what do you know about the relationship between Kate Middleton and Meghan Markle? Or what do you think you know?
Okay, so what I think I know, I actually know a little bit about this because I wrote a show that referenced Meghan Markle. So there was a period of time in which I actually did like not a deep dive, but like I just was up on things for a bit.
Yep.
So I know she's married to Prince Harry. I know she.
Okay. Just really deep dive. I'm getting that.
No, I watched her when Oprah interviewed her. So I saw Meghan's account that there was one point in which outside of the palace, people were saying that she was mean to Kate about something. And she said the truth was that Kate had been mean to her, that Kate had done something. But she also said Kate had apologized to her, that, you know, she said it more elegantly than this, but she said she didn't have any beef with Kate, but that the story that was being told was sort of being twisted to being about her being bad when that wasn't the case. So that's what I know about that. And I remember when the magazines were like making them friends, when they were like, oh, like she's showing her how royal life works. And then I remember when the magazines were like, they are not friends and they are tearing the princes apart. So that's the other part of her, is that Meghan has like drawn Harry away and Prince William, you know, doesn't trust him anymore. And Meghan is faulted for that. That's what I know.
Love that summary because that sets us up perfectly for what we're going to delve into. Because yes, all of that is accurate. They were, in the beginning, the press, you know, they were both press darlings, and their relationship was kind of a press darling. People dubbed them plus their husbands. And I love that in this episode, we're referring to Kate and Meghan plus their husbands, like they're the plus ones.
Yes.
But people referred to them as the Fab Four, that like they had articles written about them as the Fab Four, and they would go to events, all four of them. And the narrative that the media was enjoying at the time was that these four were very close, very friendly, that Kate was helping Meghan adjust to royal life. In the beginning, the narrative around them really was quite positive, but it started to shift as the narrative around Meghan started to shift, which I think is just, it's so interesting. So let me back up. Let me rewind a little bit, because I think the right place to start in order for us to really understand their relationship and understand public perception of their relationship, including mine, by the way, including my perception of their relationship, is to look at how they were introduced to the public. Starting with Kate. Now, how much did you know about Kate? Were you one of these people who followed, you know, royal happenings and when Kate was coming onto the scene and all that?
Like, I'll tell you what I remember. What I remembered was that Kate, like, I remember there was a phrase, weighty Kate, or like the Wisteria sisters with Kate and Pippa?
Pippa.
Something with a Pippa. Okay. I remember that it was like she and Prince, good old Will, dated, and then they broke up for a while, or or he was taking a long time to propose, or something like that. But that she waited. And then he eventually did propose. And, you know, I remember that. I don't think I watched the wedding, but I remember the pictures of her in her wedding dress from that wedding.
You're killing it on all the things you're remembering. You're like setting all of this up so nicely. So yes, Kate's introduction to the public was just largely positive, and I would say what the British press seemed to really like about her and seemed to really emphasize about her was how well she fit in to the royal family of it all. So I didn't realize this, she was upper middle class, but she wasn't royal, right? She wasn't a part of the royal who's its and what's its. But she did, you know, have a pedigree. She went to the same university as William. That's how they met. And because they went to the same university, because they had some overlap in friends, I think that gave the British press this idea that like, oh yes, this is the type of girl William should end up with. And so like the headlines about her when they started dating, were all very much about like how poised she was. There were a lot of headlines comparing her to Princess Diana. Like, she's so poised. She hangs out with the right crowd. She fits in. She's elevating the fashion. It just, if you like go back and read headlines from that time, it very much seemed like what people liked about her, and by people I mean the British press, was that she fit in. And the most negative thing that I could find was exactly what you referenced, the Weighty Katie. That was a little nickname they gave her, because from the time she started dating William to the time he proposed, that was 8 years, and they broke up, at least as far as the press says, twice in that period, right? So yes, people referred to her as Weighty Katie because it was like, how long are you going to stick around and wait for this man to propose to you? But that was literally the worst thing I could find that they said about this woman. Okay. Like, they still, and it wasn't as if they were saying it all the time. They were still, when they got back together, cheering for them and talking about how glamorous she is. I found a Vanity Fair article in '08 that literally was titled Kate Middleton's Reign of Glamour. And it was just a very long article about how glamorous she was, all of her appearances, all of her fashion, you know, just like how royal she already seemed. Mind you, they were not engaged at this point. Just, you know, it was just very positive, and everyone sort of felt like she fit.
Yeah. And, you know, I will say this. If the worst thing you can say to someone is Weighty Kate, listen, Alicia Keys put it best. Patience is a virtue. Like, good for her. You know what you want. You waited for it. Good for you. I'm not mad.
When did Alicia Keys say patience is a virtue?
Patience is a virtue. I mean, I can't sing it. Yes, it is. And life is a waiting game. Don't you know that? I can't remember. Can be nurtured.
This,
and all the money in the. Oh, it's Corinne Bailey.
This is
Rae.
Corinne Bailey. Yeah.
This was Corinne Bailey Rae. That was not. I was so proud of myself dropping a musical reference. It was Corinne Bailey Rae. You're right. You're right.
I was like, wait
I
a
got
minute.
there.
Now, this song, you did get there. You did get there. Good for you. Yes. So the way we were introduced to Kate was very much, this is a woman who fits into the royal family. And headlines around that time said things like, William and Kate, a royal love story. Like, that was the sort of common thing that we were seeing when she was introduced to the public. Meghan, on the other hand, when she was introduced, she was very much painted as an outsider, right? Because she was American, she was an actress, she was a divorcee, which I frankly had forgotten about. She was a divorcee, and she was biracial. So just on every account, she was, you know, she was considered an outsider. Now, in the beginning, however, it seemed like this outsiderness was painted fairly positively. In fact, I found several headlines across many, many publications that referred to her as a quote unquote breath of fresh air for the royal family. So people liked that she was an actress. People liked she was also an activist. Before she met Harry, she was speaking out publicly against racism. She was speaking out on political issues, women's rights. She was an ambassador for multiple organizations. People seem to feel like, yes, this is the future of the monarchy. We need people who don't look like us. We need more diversity. We need more outspokenness. Like, we need a way to make the monarchy more relevant. And she's going to help us do that. So in the beginning, she was painted in a very different light, very much an outsider, but that was seen as like a positive thing.
That definitely rings some bells. And I remember, I don't know when this came out, but I remember there was some Nickelodeon thing when we were kids where Meghan Markle wrote in to an advertising company or to Congress or something about how the commercial said women are throwing away their dish gloves, and she was like, why women? Like, change it to people are throwing away. Like, why would you assume that only women are doing dishes? And yes, I remember a story about that was very positive about her came out around that time.
Yeah, and you're right. It was featured on, it may have been Nickelodeon, but it was featured on television. And you can see like an 8-year-old or 10-year-old Meghan Markle talking about the fact that she had written that letter to the dish soap company and that they had written back. And she was so, you know, proud of like this difference. So that ambition and outspokenness that she exhibited when she was younger very much carries through. And it's very obvious. She's not trying to hide it. She's very direct. I mean, I even went back just as part of the research for this episode, I realized I don't have a lot of memories of hearing Kate Middleton speak. Like, I feel like everything I know about her is what I've either read about her or what other people have said about her. And I don't have any real memories of ever having heard this woman speak. So I went back and watched her engagement interview when she got engaged to William in 2010. And they had given an interview to some British publication. And I mean, she comes across as just very reserved. You know, she's sort of like looking at William every time before she speaks. She is deferring to him. She is, and not in a way that, you know, it's not, I'm not trying to imply she was submissive, but very, again, reserved, which I would contrast to Meghan Markle, because I went back and watched her interview too, her engagement interview. She is just like getting in there. Every question, she's like, I'm gonna tell you the answer, okay? You know, she just very different, and I do feel like that was highlighted by the press.
That makes a lot of sense, and I can totally see her. Like when I think of her and Harry, I think of her speaking more than Harry speaks. Like when I think of interviews that they've had.
Yeah, and she's an actor, and in my experience with actors, they tend to be pretty outspoken and willing to jump in. And
what are you talking about? I've never heard or experienced such a thing. How dare you?
But yeah, so this is how these women were introduced to the press and to the public. So that brings me to the weddings. Because what was so interesting to me, what I really just didn't realize until I started researching for this episode, was how much the very beginnings of how they were introduced to the public by the media, how much it carried over. So everything that we just talked about in terms of Kate being, you know, like fitting in and kind of like being a bit more traditional and well suited to the monarchy, and then Meghan being more of an outsider, breath of fresh air, more direct, whatever, all of that carried over into how their weddings were covered as well. So when you go back and you look at the wedding coverage, which by the way, now my mom took a day off work to watch the royal wedding, to watch Kate's royal wedding. My mom is someone who, like, she cares about the royal family. What is your experience with these royal weddings? Like, were you in it? Did you care? Did you watch?
I didn't care that much, but I knew other people cared. You know me. I like when people get excited about stuff. So I was just like, oh yeah. Like if someone had a picture or a meme or had something to say, I was into it, but I wasn't following it independently.
Similar for me. As it relates to Kate's wedding, there didn't feel like there was anything for me to plug into. Like, I don't really follow the royal family. I was very, very young when Princess Diana died. We were alive though, right? We were alive.
We were,
yeah.
No, I remember. Yeah. I think I was like 11 or around between 10 and 12.
Okay. So I remember her death, but I don't remember feeling like personally affected by it. So I didn't feel like I had a plug into the royal family when Kate got married, where when Meghan got married, like I watched Suits. I was a fan of Suits. So when she got married, plus she was, you know, good friends with Serena Williams. Serena was at the wedding. It just felt very black, and it felt like this is my plug. And so I definitely watched the whole thing and was like very invested. But for Kate, I didn't have that. So when I was researching and reading about the wedding, this was all kind of shocking to me because I wasn't a part of that moment. But yes, it was very much a carryover of how she had already been described in the press. Like everything was a comparison to Diana. Everything was about how elegant she was and how much of a nod to traditional British customs the wedding was. Like everything that she did, the decisions she made, the prayer, the poems, the songs, the dress, the balcony kiss, the carriage, it was all look at how she is upholding British traditions or elevating British traditions, elevating and upholding the monarchy. I mean, that was really the narrative around her wedding. And the headlines were things like A Modern Fairy Tale, Kate and William's Royal Wedding, or Kate Middleton, the girl next door who became future queen. You know, it's just like people were really leaning in to her, how much she fit in the royal family.
That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, you'd said upper middle class. I thought, is her family like wealthy? They're just not is it gentry? They're not aristocracy, but they like have, you know, they run in some circles that have money, right? Like
Yeah.
She's been exposed to this sort of traditional British something and is able to embody it and was being praised for it. And like, good for her, like great, needed some modernizing. Good for her.
Yeah, I mean, I very much got the sense from reading about her background that she was upper middle class, you know, went to private school, boarding school. So certainly her family was well off. They were not billionaires, right? They weren't, you know, top 0.1% wealthy, but certainly well off. And that, yes, they ran in some circles with some aristocracy, like people who were, I don't know, 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps removed from the royal family. I don't really know how all that works, but like, yes, she had been involved and familiar with some of it. However, she was removed enough that the press felt very impressed by how much she adopted the royal family's customs and how seamlessly she seemed to fit in because, you know, having now read Harry's book and, you know, listened to their interviews and their documentaries, by they, I mean Meghan and Harry, it does seem like it's a fair amount of work fitting in. There are a lot of customs and a lot of rules, a lot of etiquette, a lot of things that you're supposed to know but may not be explicitly told, right? And I think people were impressed with the fact that she seemed to really commit to getting it.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. I had not read Harry's book, The Spare, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I heard a little bit. Okay, this makes a lot of sense.
And I mean, you know, you could argue that for Kate, it was more important because she married the heir. Meghan married the spare, right?
Right.
Like,
There's fewer like expectations or like, yeah, there isn't the same level of, what's it called when you look at something closely? There isn't the same level of intense scrutiny. There we go. Mm-hmm.
No, totally. If you know that by being in a relationship with this person, you are next in line for the throne, maybe you do commit all that much more wholeheartedly to learning every custom and upholding every tradition and wearing the traditional British designer and this, that, and the third. Maybe there's just much more pressure if you're a Kate Middleton to do all of that than there is if you're a Meghan Markle. But, you know, regardless of her reasoning, the press was very impressed by it.
That makes sense. And also, I would argue, especially if she's running in those circles, she has, even if it's like a few degrees removed, like there are people, you know, hopefully there are friends there who can be like, oh, look out for this thing. Like, I don't think Meghan, you know, Serena's not telling Meghan what's going on in the royal family. You know what I mean? I think Meghan didn't have the hookup in terms of like, let me give you the intel on how this actually works. You know how in all those princess movies, there's always someone who comes in and is like, let me change your life for you and tell you how everything works. He breaks down the rules so you and the audience know. Yeah. I feel like that person was probably in Kate's circle, and I highly doubt there was that person in Meghan's circle.
Oh, 100,000%. I think you're absolutely right. I think Kate, however many degrees removed she was still several million degrees closer than Meghan was. Meghan had no exposure. Like, she was American and living in Canada, you know, shooting on a set for most of her time. Like, she was not studying British royal customs, okay? So you're absolutely right. I think Kate very much had a head start. And I also think she very much wanted to make sure that she was fitting in.
Oh, for sure. She definitely like put in the work to fill that space and to figure out what it was.
Now, if we contrast that to the coverage of Meghan's wedding, again, the whole focus was how different the wedding was. The whole focus was she really wanted to bring in her African American heritage and her diversity and her castmates. I mean, literally the whole cast from Suits was there. Are you telling me you did not watch any of this wedding? Did you at least see the clips?
I saw the clips. No, I for sure saw the clips. I didn't remember. Okay. I remember her mom watching her walk down that. Like, there was a camera shot of her mom watching her. And I was like, just made me happy to see a black mama in there. Yes. I did not remember this cast of Suits at the wedding. I'm mad at myself that I don't remember that.
So epic. I just remember, because at the time I still, tweeted, I still was on Twitter, and I just remember the tweets about the cast of Suits walking into this royal wedding were so great, because, it was just like, who would have thought we'd get Jessica Pearson and Donna, like, sitting front row at the royal wedding? You know what I mean? Like, it was hilarious. And also, yes, very unexpected. I mean, like I said, I haven't watched royal weddings in my lifetime, but I'm pretty sure none of them look like this, like with just straight up American actors, Serena Williams, in the crowd. So amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so the headlines about the wedding were very much focused on the fact that she made these decisions to really, I would say, like, step away from tradition in a lot of ways with her wedding. So she had not only the American celebrities, but she had a gospel choir perform Stand By Me. Yes, and they were fantastic. That choir was the bomb. She had a Givenchy dress that was very simple and not what people would call traditionally British. She made the decision to walk part of the aisle alone, which, again, breaking from tradition. And there was also a fair amount of commentary around the time of her wedding around her activism, right? And the fact that she was very progressive, and how is that going to affect and or change the royal family with this super progressive activist now joining the family. So the coverage was just very different, because it was very much about, here is this like totally new, totally different influence coming in with a gospel choir and Serena Williams and her activist views, and like, what is gonna happen? Like, this is wild.
Wild times. Oh, I forget the happy times. I remember there was a lot of hope then too. I think there was a little coverage that was like, girl from Compton or something like that. Like, there was some of that meaner coverage, if I'm remembering correctly. But for the most part, I just remember this overwhelming sense of hope for the future.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I think a lot of the world was somewhat similar to me, in that this was the first time we started paying attention to the royal family. Because up until this point, I mean, now this is where my bias is going to come out, and I don't want people to be mad at me. But, like, to me, when I think of the royal family, I think about colonization, right? That's what I think about. I think about colonizers. I think about centuries of slavery. I think about centuries of stealing from other countries. I don't think about happy royal weddings most of the time. Like, that's just me being very, very real. And that's if I'm thinking about it at all, which most of the time I'm not. And so I think this wedding, Meghan's wedding, represented the first time for a lot of people where we even felt the need to pay attention. And so, to your point, I do feel like there was a bit of like real hope in the air that, like, oh, this could be a turning point for how the royal family is perceived, and not just how they're perceived, but for the actual work and good that they do and can do in the world. So I think you're right. There was real hope.
Yeah. I just remember this being a hopeful time. And I remember, so one of my friends, Parisa Fitzhenley, actually played Meghan Markle in the Lifetime movie about Meghan and Harry. So fun fact. And so I remembered, it was yeah, there was just this time. It feels like this moment in time, which I know things have shifted since then, but I remember it was the first time I was really paying attention.
Yeah.
To your point, yeah, it was the first time that I felt gripped.
Now, let me sidebar on that. Were you up for that role too?
No, oh no, I don't think that's very kind. No, I think Parisa, I don't even know if they looked at many people. Parisa was so perfect for it. She just looked like Meghan. She also brought that same energy of like activists, like speaking up. Like when I think I found, maybe she sent me, or maybe I found her audition tape, or maybe she just described the audition to me. And I was like, oh yeah, like obviously you're the only person who could play this. Like this is, you are this person. Other than Meghan, if she wanted.
Right. right. Oh, I love that. Look at that. Queens supporting queens. Okay, so to your point about the shift, right? Like there was this moment of hope, glimmering hope, and then things kind of took a turn. And that's what we're going to turn our attention to now. So to your point, absolutely, we start to see a shift. And I think the shift happens because the foundation of where things were going to go had already been laid. Like in the beginning, this idea that Kate was more traditional, where Meghan was more willing to break the mold. In the beginning, this was all seen as very positive, but slowly it started to shift into it being more of a negative for Meghan. Like the idea that Kate was willing to uphold tradition was sort of held up on a pedestal and said, wow, look at this woman who clearly respects British tradition, respects royal family customs, and is a true representative of all that we stand for. Versus, look at this woman coming in trying to shake things up when nobody asked her to do that. And that sort of became the narrative. And then you add to it all of the very blatant racism that Meghan experienced. Like you said, there was that article calling her straight out of Compton. There were very many articles where she would be criticized for doing something that Kate was previously praised for doing. There just was very clear racism. People spoke about her mom in the press in a very negative way as being a broke single mother, just very real racism. And we could go, shot for shot, article for article, but I think a lot of that has been spoken about in great detail. But as it relates to these two women and their relationship, the foundation had already been laid. It was Kate is traditional. Kate upholds British customs and royal family customs. Meghan does not. Meghan is coming in and trying to change things and trying to shake things up. And we should not be happy about that. The British.
This totally jives with what I remember from her interview on Oprah. Ugh, God, I remember crying when watching her talking about what she went through at the palace.
I do too. What I think was so tough there were a couple things that were tough about that interview for me. The toughest one being when she spoke about being pregnant and having, suicidal thoughts, because it just immediately took me back to when I was pregnant and how difficult my pregnancy was, and obviously I wasn't dealing with any of, what she was dealing with, just pregnancy in and of itself, and pregnancy during a pandemic was so tough for me. I mean, I was mildly depressed for the entire 38 weeks I was pregnant. And so to hear how much she struggled, I mean, it just completely broke my heart. And I think what's so tough about, as I said at the top, kind of the bias that I have, you could argue against Kate Middleton, is that like I could identify with Meghan, and Meghan is far more outspoken. And so I do know all the things, at least all the things she's been willing to share about her journey and experience in the royal family, where I know nothing about what Kate has really experienced being in that family and being at that level and being put on this pedestal and all of that, which I have to imagine isn't easy, but I don't know anything about it because she's not speaking about it,
Oh, can we flip the script for just a second? I can tell you more about Kate Middleton's experience in the royal family because I know two things.
Okay.
Okay. Not that these are good things. These are actually these are sad things, but I know them.
Oh, you looked very happy. So yeah, I'm glad you caveated.
Actually, I'm not happy that these things happen. I want to be clear. I'm just excited to be able to have the instructor hat on for all of 30 seconds.
Yes.
So one part I know about Kate was, do you remember when basically she and William, this is before they had kids, I think, they were on a boat, like in the ocean, far away, and some drone or helicopters came and took pictures while Kate was naked on this boat. Naked on this boat around no one else. So there were these topless photos of Kate, and apparently the press went crazy. So some people had the photos, and there were like the palace said basically anyone who runs these photos we're cutting off. They're not getting any more royal access. So some the tabloids that really hate the monarchy, even though they make all their money off the monarchy, they ran the pictures. So like topless pictures of you when you're like a world icon and supposed to be the next monarch. And then some places like People magazine, like not People, they wouldn't run the topless picture, but the type that would, but like wouldn't hear.
Yeah.
Someone like they like on TV had one of their correspondents account and describe the picture rather than sharing it, which I'm like, I'm not sure that's better.
Yeah.
But
Yikes.
I remember that, and I just thought of how terrible that would be to be somewhere like on your honeymoon or on vacation or just away and like not around anyone, not bothering anyone.
Yeah.
And then being at a vulnerable time having pictures taken of you. Like that just seemed, I think this was before there was a big push in the world around like against revenge pornography or something like that. Because to me, this felt like revenge pornography almost, even though it's not exactly the same. But that kind of taking a vulnerable woman and like trying to expose her. I just remember thinking how shitty that was. But that was one of the things where I was like, damn, it is difficult. That is a difficult role to take on. And yes, I know some people will be like, no one forced her to. And sure, but like that doesn't make it any less shitty to happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, you know what? This is actually to your point around difficult things that Kate has gone through. I mean, I think these last few weeks could definitely be put in that bucket. And, I will say I made a TikTok about the whole Kate conspiracy, but the point of my TikTok was that the royal family, the palace, the PR team, the comms team, whomever had handled whatever it was that was going on, because I made this video before we found out about the illness and the cancer diagnosis, that whatever it was that was going on, they had fumbled so hard because all of these conspiracy theories were allowed to flourish because of the moves that they had made and how suspiciously they were moving. And by the way, I still believe that. I still believe the PR team is to blame for a lot of what happened. However, at the end of the day, what we have is a woman who was ill, had, gone in for abdominal surgery, then found out that the mass that was removed was in fact cancerous, and was undergoing chemotherapy and was trying to figure out how to communicate that to her family, how to live with that, which I am sure is very scary, while navigating the fact that her father-in-law was also recently diagnosed with cancer. And then on top of that, to have so much speculation happening so publicly all over the world, I have to imagine that was unbelievably difficult and painful. And, no one would want to live through that. And while I do still think the PR team is very much largely to blame, it doesn't change the fact that that's a really hard situation to be in.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I just think it's that the media feels really comfortable putting women through unnecessary bullshit. Maybe that's exactly what it is. That this is such unnecessary bullshit that they They already have enough on their plate, regardless of all the political things. There are plenty that we can talk about politically, culturally, all that. But just on a baseline human to human level, like this isn't necessary. Oh, I remember the other thing that was difficult. To your pregnancy point, someone pointed out to me that right after she'd given birth, Kate had to step out and like show the baby to everyone and have like be standing up, having her picture taken. Can you imagine an hour after you've given birth? Like having to go stand up and have your picture taken? What on earth? What,
I mean,
why?
in my case, I literally couldn't. I had a C-section, and directly after, I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk. So no, I cannot imagine having to get up, stand up, I think in heels, but certainly in a dress, and hold my baby on display. Absolutely not. And that was very clearly the expectation. And Meghan, on the other hand, took a lot of shit for it when she decided not to do that. When she said, I'm not going to, hours after I give birth, come kick it with the press. Like, who cares about the press? This is my child. For sure, that expectation would be a burden, 100%. So all of this shifting narrative in why, one of these women was good and the other was bad, or one was better than the other, that brings me to the actual relationship between these two women and the little bit that we know about their relationship because of what's been relayed from Harry and Meghan, and to a much lesser extent, Kate and William. What it sounds like to me, if I just think about what's been shared about their relationship, what it sounds like to me is that these are just two women with fundamentally different personalities and fundamentally different approaches to people. Like literally just the way they think about interacting with people is different. So then when you add on top of that expectations around royal protocol that one of them is strictly adhering to and the other one is less strictly adhering to, I think taking a step back from the bias that I went into this episode with and now having like read all of this and all the interviews and everything else, it sort of feels to me like, oh, these are just two people who maybe aren't that compatible personality wise, but don't actually have any real reason to dislike one another. And in fact, the little bit that we've heard them say about each other is that they do not dislike one another, right? Like there isn't this like huge tension. There have been moments of tension, but the sort of moments you would expect from two people who have to spend time together who aren't necessarily that compatible with one another. You would expect there to be some tension, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they hate each other or can't stand one another. Like that's really the conclusion I have come to. And I'll tell you why. Because the story of their first meeting, at least the way that Harry tells it, is that he did not tell Meghan that she needed to observe any sort of like royal protocol with the two of them. And they were having them over for, some sort of meal. So Meghan treated it all very casually, like, oh, I'm meeting my boyfriend's brother and sister-in-law, not I'm meeting the future king and queen. Like it seems very clear that Meghan was thinking about it as like, this is a family moment. So she talks about being barefoot and in jeans when they come over and going to give William a hug, which William recoiled at because he's like, you're supposed to curtsy, right? And all of this is happening. Kate, I think Kate at this point is out back somewhere, but like, obviously this is something she and William would have discussed. And so there's just this sort of like tension of like, why are you being so familiar? And then fast forward, another instance they talk about is when, I guess this was during the planning for the wedding, and Kate had forgotten some minute detail for the wedding, and Meghan joked like, "Oh, it's baby brain," because she had just like had a baby. And so then later, Kate basically told her, "You spoke about my hormones." And we're not close enough for you to say something like that to me. And so again, it's another instance where Meghan's personality is to be somewhat overly familiar, right? Where Kate's is to be very reserved. And so to me, it just seems like, and yes, I'm using these two isolated incidents, but also just like what I've learned of Meghan from all the interviews and things she's done. To me, it seems like she's very familiar. She's very assertive. She's very much like, let me get in there. Let me give you a hug. Let me chit chat and gab. You're family now. So, and Kate is not that. and that has caused some tension, but there's no real reason that should cause people to think that these women hate one another, which is what the press, of course, has concluded.
Oh, that's a great point. And I will say, from the time I spent in the UK, I really appreciated the time I spent in the UK, but and part of that is recognizing just a different way of being, because I found a very similar, like, distance, just an expectation of distance and like confusion and like a little bit of recoiling when you assume that distance can be easily transcended. Yeah. So that definitely jives with my experiences in the UK. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I remember one of my classmates in business school from England he just always seemed so formal to me, like always. And it's funny because I hadn't really thought about it until now, but yeah, I feel like part of it is like there is just this difference in like reservedness level. And partially it is culture. And then I think partially for Kate and Meghan, it's also just personality. But it seems to me, again, based on what these women have said, like there is, a personality difference, and there have been a couple of clashes, but there is not this like hatred, and there certainly is not anything akin to a feud going on between the two of these women.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. You can just be different people. Like, that's okay.
Right. You can just be two different people, and that's okay. And to your point about the media wanting to tear women down at any chance, like, two women who are different from each other is not news, right?
Agreed.
Like that's
breaking news. Two women are different and have different ways of navigating the world.
That's not news. but the press has gone out of its way to create a feud where there isn't one. Now, where there is a feud, where things really did get extremely dicey, is between Harry and William. But how funny that what the press reported on far before they started talking about any sort of rift between Harry and William was the breakdown between Meghan and Kate. When literally it was William who was trying to convince Harry not to marry Meghan. And that was what started causing the rift that they still have not gotten over. But this was pre-wedding. At this point, we weren't hearing anything about any so-called rift between these two men. But we were hearing all about the fact that Meghan, quote unquote, made Kate cry. We were hearing all about that tension, that supposed tension, but nothing about them getting into a physical altercation. Nothing about William trying to convince his brother not to marry the love of his life. We're not hearing about any of that, right? To your point
about that.
Oh, yes. To your point about the media, they were more than happy to drag both Meghan and Kate into this so-called feud where there wasn't one, but nothing was being said about William and Harry at this point. So, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right.
Wow. I'm guessing, was this in The Spare, the book?
Yes, that book was good. I don't read that many memoirs. I thought his memoir was really good.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. This, honestly, that was the first pot. And I think I've only heard one other person talk about it. So it's not like I've taken a great selection, but I heard someone else be like, I didn't need to read that kind of thing. So it's good. Man, maybe I will check it out because I hadn't, because the only thing I heard was meh. Okay. I'm intrigued.
Yeah. So all of this brings us to the case to be made for how these women, I know, for how these women are helping one another.
I'm here for it, KJ. I'm ready. I'm open. I'm hopeful. It's like what year did Harry and Meghan get married?
They got married in 2018.
I am feeling like I did in 2018 when Harry and Meghan were about to get married. My hopes are high, KJ. So let's take this leap. Let's go.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, it's basically I've got one argument for both. And and I'll just preface by reiterating the fact that I don't think there's a real feud here. I think the feud exists in the media's mind. And so I now would like to make this case to help all of us let go of the idea that there needs to be a feud here, because I think these women are helping each other. And here's how. I very genuinely, deeply believe that Meghan and Harry's decision to walk away from their royal duties and to put the needs of their family first is very much helping Kate. And the reason I say that is because I think that everybody needs reminders of what it looks like when you put yourself first, what it looks like when you take care of yourself and put other people's expectations to the side. Sometimes we all need that reminder. And I think in Kate's case, given where she is, the fact that she now has a role model in that and a reminder of that in the royal family, I think is so important, because I think should the day ever come, and you might argue that that day is right now with her needing to focus on herself and her health, and even the time potentially that she took before even coming forward with this news. Whether anything else happens, I think the fact that she has a blueprint for what it looks like for someone in the royal family to put themselves first, to put their family first, to defy expectations, and to come out of the other side happy, healthy, pursuing their dreams, I think that helps Kate Middleton. Whether she does anything differently or not, having that as a blueprint, I think matters, because it says you deserve to be safe, you deserve to be happy, and there's a real way to do this. It might get scary on the way out, but there is light at the end of that tunnel.
KJ, you fucking did it. I'm curious about, like,
I did it.
No, you did it. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. That makes deep sense to me on how it's not about improving Kate's public persona. It's about showing a way of being that is deeply integrated, and perhaps even the frustration that she may have felt with Meghan, like the challenge of that, like that. Again, when those triggers come up, that usually gives you something deeper to look at or dig into. So both having the opportunity for that and then seeing this model of what it is to put yourself first and because I would argue that they would say they've been putting their family first, that they've been putting the royal family first, and they put that before their own needs. But so choosing to put her personal needs to take care of herself, putting, how do they put it? Like, you have to put on your own seatbelt put on your own mask before you put on someone else's mask. Like, I think so much when you're that kind of public figure, there's this idea that you need to handle all these other things before you can handle yourself. And so,
yeah.
Wow. KJ, you did it. I did not know where you're going to go with that. And I'm on the train now.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that, because I genuinely, I hadn't thought about this while it was happening, while we were all sort of living through Meghan and Harry making that decision, and all of the hate that they endured and still endure. I mean, if you go to a British tabloid now, there's still tons of articles about how terrible these two people are, even though they've been gone for years at this point. It wasn't something that was on my mind at the time, but it definitely is now, particularly in watching Kate go through what she's going through with her diagnosis and with her recovery. I just think, I can only speak from my own personal experience, but when I've gone through really difficult times, it is important to me to look at who are the people who have gone through something similar. Can I talk to them? Can I learn from them? And I just feel like a day may come when Kate needs to lean on Meghan to understand, like, how did you get through this? What are the things that you told yourself to comfort yourself? What are the sources you turn to for strength or for reassurance? And now that's there. Whether she uses it or not, now that's there. And I do think that that matters. And I do think that that's helpful.
I think, and to your point when you said whether or not she uses it, because like you said, that British Reserve, it would take a lot to reach out. I would imagine. I don't know. But just knowing that there's someone there who's gone through that level of scrutiny and the like, and having that, that's, I think in that way, Meghan could be an expander for Kate if she's open to seeing it that way. Yeah. Wow. I buy it. All right. You've proven one side. You've proven how Meghan has actually helped lift up Kate. Can you prove how Kate has lifted up Meghan?
Okay. Now this one, I'm just, being very honest, was much harder for me. And I think I might be on more tenuous footing here. So, keep me honest. You might disagree. But here's what I think. I think Kate helped Meghan get to the decision to leave and to put her and her family's needs first. And the way I think Kate helped with that is by providing a very real counterpoint for what it could and should look like to be welcomed by the British public. And I think seeing that very real counterpoint in real time, if I'm putting myself in Meghan Markle's shoes, I think for me, it would have helped keep me from gaslighting myself about what I was supposed to be able to accept and what I was supposed to be able to keep my head down with and live through. Because I am sure, and she even spoke about this, I'm sure she told herself, I should be strong enough to take this. I should just keep my head down and keep fighting because this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I signed up for. And I am sure she would have just kept trying, being beaten down every day by the press, having people, literally physically trying to attack her, death threats, all the rest. If she had not been able to look up and directly see, literally across the street, but wait, not everybody is being put through what I'm being put through. Like, this isn't just, oh, this is how it works when you marry a royal, because this is not how it works for Kate. And yeah, we might have different personalities, but I'm not some shit of a human. I'm not out here burning the British flag. I'm not spitting in people's faces. In fact, I'm taking on all of these royal duties. I'm shaking every hand. I'm kissing every baby or whatever it is they do. I'm wearing a smile. I'm doing my absolute best, and none of it matters because at the end of the day, I'm going to continue to be harassed and abused and have these, racially insensitive things thrown at me day after day and be scared for my life and be scared for my son's life and be told that my son can't be a prince and that my son can't have, that royal security, which by the way happened, and be told that people are worried about how dark skinned my black baby is going to be. I'm not supposed to just deal with it, because I can look at Kate and know for a fact that this, in fact, is not normal. And so even though I may have tried to gaslight myself into thinking that it's normal, and I may have tried to convince myself that I should just lie down and take it, the fact of the matter is I have two eyes, and I can see with my good eyes that this is not happening equally between the two of us. And so I shouldn't have to take it. This is me putting myself in Meghan's shoes, but I feel like in her shoes, having such a direct counterpoint would help me come to the realization that this isn't right, and I shouldn't have to continue to put up with it. Now, what do you think of that?
Okay, so I want to say it back to you to make sure I'm hearing it too, because actually I think I heard something different in the first half of when you were saying it. So what I've landed at now is that you're saying that in seeing that Kate was treated with was more welcomed with open arms and treated with more grace, wasn't put through the same level of harassment or scrutiny as Meghan was. That's what made Meghan say, you know what, this isn't just par for the course. This isn't just what I signed up for. This is way more than it should be, and I'm picking myself.
Exactly.
KJ, you might be mad at me, but I dig it. I could have held out longer. No, that also makes sense to me, because I know in our last episode where we were together, we talked about mirrors, and being able to see sort of a mirror of what's the same and what's different. I think you're right, is really helpful when you're making those very big life-changing decisions. So the fact that they could, I mean, really in a way they're mirrors for each other, right? They're sort of mirroring back to each other the ways in which their paths have overlapped and been similar, and then the ways that they've shown up for the expectations very differently. And that makes sense to me. That I think I can definitely see that helping Meghan come to the realization that she needed to leave and set her on a different path. Yeah, I'm into it. You did it. I was real curious. Listen, I was like, but really you brought it, as ever, you brought it back to my favorite thing to talk about, which is personal development and like inner mirrors. So like you definitely set up the argument you set it up. You knew your audience when you came up with your argument. That's what I'm saying. You did it.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I do believe it. And I will say, coming out on this side of the episode and on this side of the research that I did, I do feel more empathetic with regards to Kate. And I do feel like I let what I heard about Kate, and really more so what I heard from Meghan, and how that made me feel as a Black woman who has certainly been discounted, certainly been demeaned, and certainly gone through, really shitty pregnancy. That made me feel so protective of Meghan Markle that I think it then in some ways made me feel, a bit anti-Kate Middleton. Not in a big way. I never cared that much about, Kate and William. But certainly if someone was like, quick, pick a side, I knew very clearly what side I was going to pick. And I think now the way I feel about Kate is, this is a person who, has a very reserved personality, is sitting in a very difficult seat, is currently going through a very difficult time. And there really is no reason why I need to feel at odds with her. I can feel, very protective of Meghan Markle, and I can feel like I am more aligned with her, I guess, personality-wise, without feeling anything negative towards Kate. And it's funny because I feel like I got wrapped up in the very narrative we are trying to dispel here. So, yeah, it's been a journey. I got to tell you.
Wow. KJ, this is huge. Like, you've literally helped yourself go through the very shift that brought you to creating this in the first place. That's incredible. Can I just say that's really brave too, to be honest about where you were going into this. Like, I don't know how I feel about this person. I don't know how I feel going into this, but I really believe that it's bigger than any two people and that there's something behind this idea. And then to be able to see that through and kind of recognize your own experience of it. Again, you know what? I'll say it again. If I had a hat on, it would be off. Not just for Kate, not just for Meghan, but for you, KJ. Seriously, I don't know. That's a level of introspection that you don't always get from a pop culture podcast.
Look at us. Look at us.
Look at us go.
All right, Adrienne, before we get into our final thoughts, we need to get into our favorite comments from our episode last week about Nicki Minaj and Cardi B. So what are the people saying?
Ooh, we have a comment on our YouTube from Fly Axe Sounds, and it's a really good one. They said, excuse me, I love that you covered this topic. This is a topic I never knew the whole story about, just ever heard one side of the story, the Barb's side. You were able to paint a picture of both Nicki and Cardi. But the thing about this is they were both hurt in their own way, projected their pain onto each other, and it blew up into something bigger during a misunderstanding. Like, nailed it. Exactly that. Thank you so much. That was a really thoughtful comment. And I love they did the 2 hearts emoji too. Fly Axe Sounds. I'm on board. I'm a fan.
You get it. Thank you, Fly Axe Sounds. All right. So what are our final thoughts? What are you thinking, Adrienne? Hit me with it.
I thought, damn, these are 2 women who are so different. And I think that really just goes to show how beautiful and different that people can be, like that there's a whole tapestry that makes up this world, and you don't have to be more like one or more like the other to be right or to be perfect or to be seen, that there's space for more than one way to navigate the world, especially as an icon. And I just really appreciate that we're making space for both of them after, again, in the media, we're told we have to pick a side, and there's just no reason to have to pick a side. We can honor what both these women have been through and what they're doing for their families and in the world.
I love that. And I guess for me, my final thought is I sort of want to walk away from this episode with my takeaway being to, like, raise an eyebrow a little bit when I feel myself being convinced to dislike someone because of what's being said or because of this urge to defend. Because actually it was the same thing with Taylor, right? I spent a lot of time feeling like I had to dislike Taylor Swift in defense of Beyonce. And when I let that go, I got to enjoy an artist who has made my life better, genuinely. So I think I want to take away just this, like, you know what? If I feel myself doing that, let's raise an eyebrow and let's think about it. I want that to be my takeaway.
That's it for this week, everyone. Be sure to follow us on TikTok at 2 Queens, 2 Crowns, and to check out the podcast on YouTube, 2 Queens, 2 Crowns.
Adrienne and I would also love for you to follow us on our personal socials. I'm on TikTok at @IM_KJ Miller and YouTube with the handle at @IMKJ Miller. And Adrienne's on IG at Adrienne Rose White and TikTok at wrong_or_right. We'll see you next week.